Let's set the scene. You just graduated. You're excited, ready to start your career. So you sit down and start searching for that first job. But something seems off. You can't find any entry-level roles in your field, not even internships. It's not that the door's shut, it's just gone. Then you start hearing the news. That starter job, the first rung on the career ladder, it's disappearing. And the work that once went to junior hires, it's being handed off to AI. But if that's true, how do you even begin to build a career? And what does that mean for companies that might be staffed up today, but risk having no pipeline of talent tomorrow? I'm Eric Glass, and this is Piece of Work, a Force podcast. Over the past few years, AI hasn't just changed work. It's quietly taken over the kind of tasks that used to launch careers. Data collection, basic analysis, proofreading, the things junior employees did to learn the ropes. In August 2025, a Stanford study found that jobs with high exposure to AI saw a 13% drop in early career opportunities. And when employers do hire young talent, expect them to show up already fluent in AI tools. The ripple effects of this change are widespread. Schools and training programs struggle to keep pace with the spread of AI. So most grads only discover the skills gap once they're out in the job market. And inside organizations, something else is being lost. That first stretch of work where people once learned how to collaborate, make decisions, and build judgment. Without that training ground, we risk creating a workforce where many are skilled, but none are seasoned. So the question isn't, will AI take jobs? It's, what happens to the talent pipeline when there's no clear way in? To get a sense of what the shift looks like for people just starting their careers, I spoke with Andrey Yasinsky. By day, he's a data scientist, but by night, he's a YouTuber who helps young professionals navigate a job market that feels tougher than ever. I wanted to understand what he's seeing and what it actually feels like to build a future when the ground keeps shifting beneath you. So to start things off, take us back to your first true foot in the door moment in the job market. What did things look like back then, and who took a chance on you?
So it was way different. I was having, I was getting my bachelor's degree, and just the sheer amount of internships and opportunities for professionals, it was way more than it is now. So I have a degree in marketing. So I remember when I was on my third year, there were like maybe 20 different internships that I applied to and got into selection process. And I got several offers, and the assessment was not that hard. The bar was quite low at the time. So I got offered with one of the big companies, and the job itself was not that particularly hard. And I know for a fact that all of the companies that offered internship back then, they don't have internships now.
Yeah, that leads right to the next question. If a new grad tried that same path today, would it work? And in your view, how has AI changed the situation?
I don't think really that the same path exists now, because with lays off, with companies that are laying off right now thousands of people, they really, a lot of the company do not really bet on junior professionals. They do not really think that it's important for the company or for the industry to have positions that were available back then. So I see the path that I took at one point right now as non-existent. And I speak a lot with junior professionals, and they all have the same struggle. They cannot even get interview. And when I'm going out and interviewing with companies, you know what I hear all the time? I hear that the competition now is at all-time high. And this is for middle or senior positions. I cannot imagine what it's like for juniors.
There's a view that the entry-level job is going away. And what I wonder is it going away, or is it being significantly augmented by AI, and therefore the entry level job, the first job, now is going to just look totally different?
I firmly believe that the entry job is gone for good. So I don't think that there's ever going to be like juniors with AI or interns with AI. I think it's just going to be non-existent. I think the bar has been raised forever, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's the same way that when industrial revolution happened, like you have to be much more skilled to operate, but your efficiency or like your output is 10 times 100 times more, and the same is going with AI. I think the market and education system just needs some time to adapt to it, and I'm sure that there's going to be new opportunities with AI. So not necessarily in the same fields. Like AI right now is honed on old professions, right? So the professions that existed way before this AI disruption. But there's going to be new profession and new tech created, and there's going to be new opportunities for people who are coming up now. So I really believe that people, especially young people right now who are like still in high school or in early years of university, when they graduate, they're going to see a completely different market, not in the way that it's going to be like juniors with AI, but in the way that there's going to be completely new jobs created.
So it'll be completely new jobs, and your view is if you are a young person or very early career person, there'll be a different path to it. It will just look very different than, kind of what has been the path today, which you study, you get your degree, you figure out internships, you step into an internship, and then, off you go, you find your way. So, in your view, it's just going to be a very redesigned, reimagined kind of pathway to work.
It's very easy to create now the ceiling that was there before, where you have to study a lot, get up to this technical level, and then you can create something. Now basically a barrier to creation of new products is lifted, and that's also a path for many people coming into workforce by creating their own project thing. And I see many people right now, especially many young people, they do that instead of traditional employment. They say, "What? Why be employed when I can go on and build my own thing?" Right? Very valid way to get experience. If nobody is going to hire you to be junior, why not be junior and be self-employed?
Is that the advice that you give to young people, young early professionals these days? Is that how you have them thinking? I mean, I think it's super interesting. Got me thinking.
Either you study much more and you get yourself to a middle and senior level, which is hard but it's doable, right? So and you come to workforce with much more skills and try to get opportunities connecting directly with hiring managers and people who make decisions, because you're never going to pass CV screening and when you just got out of university and have no experience. Or you go and do your own thing, and you get an LLC, like you're self-employed, you do your own product. And a lot of major tech companies, they really value that you saw some project from 0 to 1, and then you get an experience for your CV. Like worst case scenario is just like any other job, right? But the problem is, of course, that it doesn't pay the bills. Right? It's not gonna really, you're not gonna sustain yourself. So the earlier you can do that while you're still studying, the better.
So based on what you've seen, what do you think are some, so if we sort of think a little bit more on the employer side, we've been talking about the young professionals. Um, Based on what you've seen, what do you think are some concrete steps for employers to take, to rethink their talent strategy, for younger workers?
I really think the way that we got in industry, like you and me, with internships and junior roles, it was better. It was just better. Like this pathway to mm, to middle levels, to mid career, and to senior career, they need to exist. So if I would give one advice to employers is you still need those roles, because if you're not going to have them, then sooner or later there's not going to be people in mid-career on the market, or it's going to be significantly harder.
Well, hey, you've given us so much to think about. I want to ask one more question before we wrap up, because I really love the advice and the um, the feedback, specifically to people early in their career of like, hey, never been a better time to go and build your own. I'm curious, if you rewound and you were, you didn't have the internships, you didn't have the pathway, that you discussed in terms of where, you entered, the workforce and started your career. If you were to go back to that time, um, what would you personally go for it and build?
I personally, and maybe I will do that in the future, I have been always very passionate about education. That is one of the reasons that I started my own YouTube channel, and it started at first I was talking about analytics and data science, and then I transitioned to talking more about career and interviews. But basically, I'm an educator at heart. I really love sharing knowledge, getting knowledge and sharing knowledge. So if I would go back right now at the start of my career, I wouldn't go to internships and I wouldn't go into marketing or data science. The company and the service I would build would be an education company that would help to get, that would kind of democratize education, because right now there are a lot of different courses there on different topics, but I see how it all can be tied together. And I believe right now with the development of AIs and LLMs, education can really be brought to the next level.
Talking with Andre gave me a better sense of what it's like to start a career right now, the uncertainty, but also the creativity and adaptability that young professionals are bringing to it. It also made me curious about how employers see this moment, especially as AI reshapes what early career work even looks like. So I reached out to Alexandra Levit, best-selling author, workplace futurist, and former Wall Street Journal columnist. She spent years studying how technology and talent collide, and her upcoming book, Make School Work, explores how we can bridge the gap between education and employment through real-world learning. Let's start off with a quick level set. Is AI truly eliminating traditional entry-level jobs?
Well, there is a lot of that in the news lately, and I wish I could say, Eric, that this is overblown. I actually don't think it is overblown. However, the caveat to this is that it's not eliminating all types of entry level jobs, just some types of entry level jobs. I remember about 15 years ago, I was on a podcast, actually, one of the original podcasts, and I was asked about the jobs that would be most in jeopardy around now, 2025. And even then, with AI in its infancy, you could still sort of see the writing on the wall that knowledge worker jobs, like, for example, being an entry level programmer or an entry level computer science major, wasn't necessarily going to be a career that would continue to be marketable as technology took over more and more types of roles. 15 years later, that is what we're seeing, is that the first jobs to be automated are those ones that are in the technology sector, where it's just kind of basic things that AI can do, like programming, and we see administrative assistant roles and those kinds of things being eliminated. But what we don't see being eliminated, far from it, are entry level roles in the skilled trades. And in fact, we see the opposite thing happening there, where we have massive labor shortages. For example, in advanced manufacturing, they cannot get people in the door that have the right set of skills to provide the oversight needed to manage their smart machines, let's say in a factory. I want to be careful that, yes, this is a trend. If you were an entry level knowledge worker, it's tougher than ever to get a job. How tough kind of depends on what your area of study was.
So much to unpack in there, and so definitely want to pull some of that apart as we chat. But you're so close to what's going on in the market, to the workforce across, many industries. Let's just sort of take one more step into what does it feel like to be a first-time job seeker today?
I think it feels pretty terrifying, but I would temper that response by saying I think it has been terrifying pretty much forever for entry level college grads, but especially since COVID. I would even argue that the disruption of COVID and preventing entry level folks from going into an office during the time when they need to be learning critical assimilation skills, I think that was actually more disruptive for entry level folks than what we are currently seeing with AI. I know that might be somewhat of a provocative position, but I think they were far worse 5 years ago than they are today. It's tough. It's going to continue to be tough because we do, again, see the entry level jobs diminishing a bit. And by the way, I believe this is very short sighted of companies to eliminate entry level jobs. There's a couple problems with it. Number one, they don't have the succession planning. If you don't bring junior people in, you have no one to advance. And also, we talk about this all the time, there's not enough oversight of AI based technologies. So when you do like random mass layoffs or you stop hiring people and you automate a process entirely, you are not teaching people how to effectively govern these smart machines, which still cannot operate on their own. And I don't think they're going to be operating on their own for quite some time. And so what we see, I'm calling this blunt force automation, where we're just taking large swaths of the human workforce and cutting it. And that is probably the worst thing that you can do. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a pendulum swing back toward hiring people because you're going to start to see a lot of mistakes being made. And so mark my words, you can quote me on that. We'll see in like a year or two, but I think it will swing back the other way because I think leaders will realize that they have been overzealous with this.
So one of the questions that I have that I've really been pondering, and let me know your view. Is it really that entry level jobs are going away, or is it just the entry level jobs as we have known them and known them for the last number of decades are now evolving quickly, but there's always a entry point, right, for workers, and the new entry point is what are the right set of skills and capabilities combined with the power of technology, AI in this case, and demonstrating your capability to an employer from that view. So is that really what we're talking about here, or is it really a redefinition of an entry level job?
I think this is a brilliant question, Eric. And I think it gets to a lot of the nuances that we're seeing here. And I would love to be able to say, yes, I think the entry level will still exist. It's just going to be in a new redesigned form, just the way we're doing all jobs. All jobs are being redesigned with consideration of what are human and AI's unique strengths. Unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is that because nobody has worked with AI before, leaders seem to have this notion that people who have more institutional knowledge or more years of experience in the workforce in general and in their career in general or their skill set in general, that those are the people they want working with the AI. They don't necessarily want entry level people working with the AI, I guess, because they don't trust them or think they have enough background information to operate effectively with it, which when we talk about managing AI risk, there is some validity to this, but I think some of it is a knee jerk reaction. Just like, we got to roll out this stuff. We have to implement it right away. And yeah, just I want somebody I trust to be working on it, or I want somebody who has 10 years of technology experience, even if that's not AI experience. So what we're seeing is that the job market for like mid-level to senior level people is not really being affected by AI right now. It is the entry level for that reason. I think it's a fear-based response. I think what entry-level people can do, though, is get really good at using AI to do their work, to be out in front and ahead of this, so that when a job does present itself, maybe it isn't even an entry-level job, but you can show that you have those applied technology skills to be able to take whatever process they're hiring you for or have a need for, that you already know how to use AI to do that better and save them money and gain productivity. And then I think it won't even matter necessarily if you are entry level or not. But I think what you do is you downplay the entry level part of it because they're so scared of AI that they don't want anybody at the entry level doing it. So that's kind of my perspective on this.
So fascinating. So fascinating. And so when we think about, some of these, sort of new roles, new titles, right? It was prompt engineering was everywhere. Now there's a lot of this AI cleanup engineering. I mean, do these kinds of fast emerging and fast evolving roles, are they real opportunities for young professionals to get in the market, or frankly, is it again just still the table stakes of requirement, but not necessarily an open door in a real way for the young professionals?
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. It is an incredible opportunity. And we are just at the very beginning of seeing the jobs that are going to be created by AI. People sometimes lack imagination about this. It's like, well, what human jobs could be created if AI can do everything? Well, just look at the internet. Many of us lived through the internet age where we thought the internet was going to take over everything. And all of a sudden, there's something called social media, and there's a social media manager, and you all have an entire social team. Well, those are all jobs that didn't exist before before social media. So that's just a very concrete example in our lifetime of how this works. So prompt engineer and AI wrangler. I like the term explainer, where you take the data that AI comes up with and you have to develop it into a coherent, persuasive story for human audiences. These are all jobs that are going to be created, and they will have entry level too.
There's a real interesting skills conversation inside of this too, right? And so, how are you thinking about that? What are you seeing relative to the skill shift in the age of AI, and maybe what really still needs to happen to really, again, number one, like create the opportunities we all want to see for the newest folks and coming into the workforce, and those of us that are still asking Google style questions. Like, what has to happen from a skill perspective?
Well, Eric, everyone is scrambling now. It's a pretty
Yes,
universal
yeah.
issue. We see the implementation of AI happening in a way that has not occurred with other emerging technologies. Typically, what we see is when there's an emerging technology that's very disruptive, the business world tends to stand back and let startups take the role because they don't want to take the risk. And in this respect, AI is extremely different in that everybody is just like throwing their hat in the ring. But that means that nobody really knows what they're doing. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of risk. There's probably going to be a lot of backlash happening with that, which is why the AI Wrangler job is going to be, or AI Fixer is going to be so important.
Why don't we talk a little bit about the employer side a little bit? So, what what are you hearing about fully automating certain roles? I mean, you already, talked a little bit about, right, pretty heavy pendulum swing into how many roles can we now push directly to AI? Every company is looking for as much productivity, efficiency, cost line reduction as possible. But what do you hear as you speak to them, and they contemplate fully automating? Is it all excitement, or is there also some awareness in there of, hey, we're going to do this, try this, and we're just going to have to see what happens?
Well, Eric, you can see that I'm not really smiling when you're asking that question. This is one of them where I'm really honestly kind of surprised that CEOs are out publicly kind of bragging about the thousands of jobs that they've eliminated due to AI. Like, even if you are doing that, I'm not sure that I would have the arrogant public approach to this. And I'm not really sure where that's coming from. But to me, it seems not only tone deaf, but pretty short sighted in that this is going to result in some risk and some problems that you're then going to have to go back and fix. I can't remember the company off the top of my head, but I just saw a piece last week about one of these big companies had gotten rid of like 5,000 jobs and was trying to like hire all those people back because they realized they couldn't fully automate the process. And sure enough, in organizations where there's been a lot of research to this effect, where you've tried to simulate an entire organization with all AI agents with no human oversight, AI gets tripped up very, very quickly. Like, for example, if you get one word wrong in the prompt from one agent to another, and the process gets confused, it doesn't know what it's supposed to do next, it's still very limited in what it can accomplish. And so it's very, very easy to derail it. And I think organizations that are doing this are starting to realize, well, geez, God, I need to bring back people because the AI can't do this on its own.
I think you made this point. Like, in your view, there's maybe too heavy of a pendulum swing. You do believe it's going to swing back to some degree, meaning that there's got to be a right balance of human workers plus AI to really create the most successful outcomes.
Yes, and I think we will find that, but it's an answer that a lot of leaders don't want to hear. It's like, how do we get from point A to point B? And the answer is job redesign. And it really does require breaking down every job into its component parts and making a decision as a person, by the way, not an AI, what can be best done by AI and what can be best done by a person. And you kind of in the background have to keep in mind that the regulation and compliance of these technologies hasn't kept up with their implementation. So where you might be traditionally looking for, like, let's say, a law that tells you how you can and cannot use AI, well, it might not exist yet. And you might actually have to be sued before everyone figures out what the right answer is.
This has been such a great conversation, but I want to draw us down because we've covered so many important concepts, and you've provided so much really important things to think about. If you were to narrow in, kind of one piece of advice, and in two directions, one for the young professional seeing this wildly changing landscape of entry-level jobs, disappearing and changing, what's one just clear piece of advice you would give to them in that space? And then maybe one piece of advice for employers that are trying to figure out how to deploy AI and doing it in the most effective way to sort of meet the employees where they are.
I love it, Eric. So for the entry-level professional, I would say you need to think about the job that you want to have or the industry that you want to go into. And you need to think about where AI is making an immediate difference or can make an immediate difference, and then acquire those certifications. They're easy to get. A lot of them are free, where you can kind of come in and hit the ground running, knowing more about how to deploy AI for a specific business process that they're asking for. And you shouldn't underestimate the lack of knowledge in most of the business world still. I'll give you a great example, and that's law. Now, AI has been fairly mature in law for a while. There are lots of things that are in the legal process that AI can do pretty well, case research just being a quick example. The majority of law firms I talk to aren't doing anything with this. There's a lot of companies that are still behind, and they're afraid of being behind. Or sometimes not. Some law firms are like, I don't need to do any of this, but they're eventually going to come to the realization their clients are asking for this and they need to do it. On the employer side, the thing that I see happening the most, that's very frustrating to be on a team and watching this happen, there has to be an owner for the AI strategy. What I see happening in not even big companies, I mean, it is big companies, but also small companies, you've got lots of pockets of people doing stuff. And one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. There's no centralized AI strategy. Everyone has their own ideas. And you actually see things being executed that don't go with one another. Like you've got people going in totally different directions. You have to have a centralized strategy, and then that it becomes far more easy to tell people what to do, and that the redesign of jobs becomes easier because it's coming from kind of a overarching strategy for the organization that can then drill down into specific departments. That's what I would say.
Talking with Alex and Andrey, I kept thinking, if we're not careful, AI won't just reshape work. It could break the talent pipeline altogether. Alex called it blunt force automation. Companies cutting entry-level roles faster than they realize what's been lost. Because when you remove that first rung, you don't just lose beginners, you lose your future leaders, your culture carriers, and your ability to pass on judgment and context. Andrey's story brought that to life. The old pathways of internships, apprenticeships, and starter roles are disappearing, and people are adapting in real time, building their own projects, mastering AI tools, and creating experience where none exists. For HR leaders, the message is clear. First, don't forget the long game. AI is making leaders a bit more reactive. The fear of being last is real, but decisions made today will have a ripple effect into the future. Tomorrow's innovative leaders are just learning the ropes today. That's a critical step we can redefine, but shouldn't try to skip. Second, bring people along for the ride. Rather than simply replacing roles with AI, consider training your people to drive value with AI instead. And finally, use AI to strengthen the pipeline, not sever it. Because when people can see a future in their work, that's when they stay, contribute, and lead. The good news? We still have time to get it right. If we use this moment to reimagine how people learn, grow, and lead, AI won't replace the next generation of talent. It'll help build it. Thank you for listening to Piece of Work. I'm Eric Glass. If you've enjoyed the show, let us know on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.